Hey, what's up everybody, this is Justin here to do a very special J-vlog, and my J-vlog is about writing resumes in Japan. Some places in Japan will be okay with typed resumes, especially they'll make this exception to foreign residents. You know, you just email your regular resume, while in most Japanese companies, they want you to either hand it in person or just send by snail mail and handwritten. So this is what a typical Japanese resume looks like. In this upper right-hand corner of the paper, that's where you put a passport-sized photo. In America, this is illegal because it promotes discrimination, while in Japan, this is unfortunately the norm. And of course, please put a picture of yourself in wearing business attire. And I'll explain, I've had stories using pictures later. So, going on, here you write down the present date, and here you write your name. Of course, if you're a foreigner like me, you just write your name in katakana, and above you write in hiragana. And right here you circle if you're male or female, and if you have a hanko, a stamp, you put your stamp here, which is pretty much a signature in Japan. And here you write your date of birth. And in these parentheses right here, you write down your present age. Here you write down, let's say, your present address. You write down your telephone number. And if you also, let's say, have a permanent address, like your address in home, I guess you write this here, and their telephone number. And here you write down, like, your educational and your employment history. Like, normally in my resumes, I don't write down where I went to high school. I just went to where I went to college. While in Japan, like, where you went to high school is kind of a big deal, because high school is not mandatory in Japan, and sometimes in certain secondary schools, like, let's say Meiji is connected to a college, and that's considered a good thing. And yeah, I just write down, like, I graduated from Gilbert High School in 2002. You also write down, like, which course you took, like, let's say a special business course, or a regular course, or a special course that gets you into a college. And here you just write down also where you went to college, what department you were under, and what you majored in. And then after that, you write down your employment history if you have no further educational history. Like, you just write down the date you sometimes start or ended, and you write down the company, your position, and why, you left. Like, say, like, your contract ended and all that other stuff. I've heard of some places for foreign applicants you can write this all in English, but I've never had to do that before. Every time I had to write this, I had to handwrite this in Japanese. And if you need more space for, let's say, other stuff, like where you've worked in the past, you might need to use this space. And here in this box, you write down, like, your qualifications or your whatever certifications you have. Like, for example, for Japanese people, if you have a certain score on this English test called the Eiken, or if you, like, pass, let's say, level 2 or level 1, you write this here. Like, you write down the date you got it, like what year, what month, and what that certain certification is. And what's also interesting in Japan is, like, on these resumes, you can type down what kind of driver's license you have. Of course, in America and other countries, having a driver's license is the norm. But in Japan, there's many kinds of driver's licenses. Like, for example, they have separate licenses for automatic or manual. But if you have a manual license, you can automatically drive automatic cars too. And but with automatic licenses, you can't drive manual. While in America, a license is a license. And you just kind of, like, write about yourself here. What are your hopes? You write down your hobbies, what you're involved in. Like, if you're, like, in a Rotary Club or if you go to a gym, you write that down here. And you write down what your specialties are, your special skills. Like, if you can, let's say, use Photoshop, Microsoft Office, or Apple iWorks. You write this all here. And here you write down, like, what are your goals for your job and all that stuff. And here you write down whatever work hours you want to do. And you write down if you have any dependents, like your children or something like that. Or if you're single or married in this box. Or if your spouse has any dependents. Like, for example, if your mother-in-law or father-in-law is living with you, or a sister-in-law, or maybe your spouse's other kids, maybe that's it. And this box is like for the employer. So yeah, that's it for that. And I kind of want to share my own story about what I did with pictures. But, well, yeah, before I get into that, but the whole handwriting thing. So yes, I think in some instances they're okay with being typed. But in many instances, they want you to handwrite this. And in all instances, I've had to handwrite all my resumes in Japanese, which I can do. Yes and no. But when I have to write kanji, it's just like I just have to, let's say, reference a certain book or something just to make sure I got it right. But yes, it's just really difficult for me to write in kanji because Japanese as a whole, or I believe any other, let's say, languages that had a certain writing system, like maybe for just the Chinese characters, not, of course, some kanji comes from Chinese characters, but also maybe Hangul, I believe they're designed for right-handed people, and I'm left-handed. And that's really been difficult for me when I write kanji because it looks really awkward. But yeah, thankfully I've managed to get interviews in the past and jobs in the past based on my Japanese resumes. But anyway, it's just that I believe recently this one restaurant owner, he talks about, like, if you type your resume, it just shows you're taking the easy way out and you're lazy, while if you handwrite it, it just shows you're willing to work hard. I get where he's coming from, but I just don't think how having handwritten skills is any important to working in a restaurant. I guess when you're taking orders, I guess that's true. Maybe that's but usually most restaurants in Japan that I go to, it's just like they have this certain tablet or Palm Pilot kind of machine where you just push a button saying what you're ordering and that's it. But yeah, that's really cool. But yes, using pictures. And as some of you know, I normally tend to wear glasses, and when I have my picture taken, whether it be selfies, passport photos, or just photos in general, I don't wear my glasses because I'm worried about the flash kind of ruining things and ruining the picture and maybe my eyes, so I just don't do that. So yeah, I've only had 2 instances, one not a big deal, another a big deal about not wearing glasses. It's just this one interview I went to not too long ago in Hyogo, not too far from Osaka. This one school I interviewed at, one person interviewing was an American, and one person was a Japanese woman, both middle-aged. And when I show up, they're like, "Oh, you look different from your picture." I'm like, "Oh, can you please show me the picture I sent?" And they're like, "Oh, I'm not wearing my glasses." So I just took off my glasses, and like, "Oh, you do look different without your glasses." And it was not a big deal. They just wanted to make sure that, there was no mix-up. And, yeah, I guess I can pull off the Clark Kent and Superman disguise thing. It's just from my schoolboy days, like, I would always wear a hat, and when I didn't wear a hat to school some days just because I forgot or I was getting washed, nobody would recognize me. My teacher would say, like, "Kid, you're not in this class." I'm like, "Hey, it's me, Justin." I'm like, "Oh, it's you. I don't recognize you without a hat." So yeah, it was just one of those instances that I just pull off. I don't know why. But yeah, the bad instance I've had was a few years ago. I applied for this boys' school, and it was somewhere in Tokyo. And I just showed up. I just knocked the door, opened the door, and they're like, "Hi." I'm like, "Shitsurei shimasu." Let me in. And I just said, "Yoroshiku onegai shimasu." Like, "I'm pleasure to meet you," or "pleasure to have this interview with you." The truth is, "Yoroshiku onegai shimasu" has many contextual meanings. But that's another story for another time. And then I just show up in there, and I just sit down. the main panel guy was this old guy. He just looks and is like, and he asked me in Japanese, like, why do you look different in your picture? I'm like, and I say to him in Japanese, like, oh, can you show me my picture? Like, oh, 僕が送った写真を見せてください. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, メガネをかけてないから. I'm like, oh, I'm not wearing my glasses. And I just take off my glasses just to make sure, I look different. He's like, なぜ写真でメガネをかけてないの? It's like, why aren't you wearing your glasses in your picture? And he's like, or, もしくは、なぜメガネかけないで来ましたか? He's like, why did you come without your glasses? And I just try to explain to him, like, hey, I just don't like to wear my glasses when taking a picture. And, like, he just makes a big deal out of it. And he just says, like, you should be doing this if you're going to do this. And he was coming across as very hostile, like, yelling at me. And I just had this blank expression on my face, just, like, why is this really a big deal? And I didn't say anything. He was like, get out. He's like, Dete. And I'm like, what? Like, nani, huh? And, like, just because I said, huh, not knowing what he's trying to get across from me, he gets really mad. Like, I've experienced this a number of times. I'm pretty sure other gaijin have. It's just, like, this is kind of more common with older people. But if you say, huh, like, no matter what, like, they get really pissed off. And it's like, I'm like, fine, whatever. I'm like, I don't want to work for you assholes anyway, if you're going to be like this. I'm like, I wanted to kick his ass so bad, but I'm like, this dude's not worth getting deported over. And I just walked out and that was it. And unfortunately, that just had to happen. So yeah, that's my experiences just doing this resume interviews. Alright, see you later.